financial freedom is defined by passive income exceeding monthly expenses, then I can decide what I'm doing with money if I agree that that's my objective. So assume the person listening to us right now says, I want that to be my goal. I want to be quote unquote financially free by having more passive income than my monthly expenses. Then here's the question for you. If I take $1 and I put it in the market of any sort, right? Will it produce a passive income for me? Yes or no?
Representing Franchise Secrets, Erik Van Horn.
Russ, welcome to the show.
Erik, thanks so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Dude, I'm super jealous. You have a big lake behind you, and I've got a snowstorm coming, and you're going out wake surfing after this. How long have you been into like having second homes on a lake? Because I have not done that yet.
Yeah, so interesting. I had a mentor one time. He did this talk, and he titled the talk "The 401 Condo," and he was comparing a 401k that most people would have versus his beach condo. And he talked about all of these similarities that they have, but then he really got into what are the difference makers? Where is it that the second home, if you will, starts to really peel apart and stand above? And when I heard that talk, I said, I need that. But for me, we're not a beach family, we're a lake family. And so we've had a lake house since for the last 5 years, 6 years now. And it's our retreat. It's a place I love to come and spend time. I do have an office here, so I can enjoy a couple hours of work, but then go out and get into the water and pull the kids around. My fun part is driving kids around on the boat. If you could see my shirt, it actually is a little boat, like with the little rope and something like a little surfer behind it.
I love it. My girls they like the lake, but they like to be on the boat, but they're not surfing yet. I'm going to make I'm going to hire someone to come out and teach them how to surf, because obviously I've done a very poor job of it. But they're good with tubes and everything else, but not on the surfboard. And so this is going to be the summer of surfing for the Van Horn family. So I might reach out for some tips.
Yeah. Oh man, when I first got my boat, I remember I took the kids out. I wasn't too far from the marina, and I was just dragging them, like drowning them behind the boat. I know most people don't want to hear this, but you do. So I'll share it with you and you can cut it out later. But I'm just like drowning them. I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong. And there was this like 20-something-year-old kid standing on the dock whenever we came back to go. There was like a little restaurant nearby. And he said, hey, have you guys ever surfed before? And I was like, no, it's our first trip out. We've never done it before. He goes, well, I teach lessons. If you'd be interested, I'd be happy to take you out. Here's my card. I'm like, what are you doing in an hour and a half? And he went out with us for like 3 hours, and every one of the kids got up. He taught me, more importantly, as a boat driver, what I was doing wrong, because I was making it hard on them. And since then, man, they've loved it. It's been great. So yeah, it definitely is a fun sport. It's something even as older guys can do because it's very low impact on your body.
I love it. I mean, that just goes like the shortcut to success in so many different arenas is hiring a coach.
Oh, totally.
My girls are in Taekwondo and they are loving TKD, but they're in group classes, and my wife is she's on board with hiring private coaches now because she's seen how good it is. And the lady training them is a bronze medalist at the Olympics. She's like a 3-time Olympian, and in this little town of Spearfish, South Dakota, and she's their teacher. And so she's like, hey, I'm getting them private lessons in between their, the days off because they love it so much. I'm like, that's the best thing. When you get a private coach for anything, it's the shortcut. Like, it's absolutely the shortcut. Any thoughts on shortcutting through private coaches?
Oh yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I've spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn from other people. I mean, either you can pay retail, right? Try to do it the hard way yourself, or you can borrow the information from an expert. And even though you're paying the expert, a lot of times the cost to doing it through them, you just fast track. I mean, I have so many mentors in my life that have showed me how to get to different levels, right? Like ultimately, you've always heard that you're supposed to, level up with the people you're around. You're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, all these things. And it's so true, right? Like in the experts, the coaches that we can have around us that can help us think through stuff that we just haven't reached yet, right? Like a guy, one of our masterminds that we're part of, he loves to say, I know I'm in the right room when my aspirations are the daily accomplishments of the people there. And when you have a coach or whatever it is that you're listening to, if they've accomplished the thing that you're trying to aspire to reach, you go, okay, that's my right person. And now it's incumbent upon us as students to be good students, right? We have to show up and be good learners. But at the same time, it's like picking the right coaches coming out of the financial space. So oftentimes people will say, oh, my financial advisor said blank. And I'll go, oh, that's interesting. Is your financial advisor at a level where you want to be? Or my CPA said I should do this. Oh, that's cool. Is your CPA at the level where you want to be? And when they say yes, I go, okay, cool. So you probably want to like lean in there. But sometimes they're like, well, actually, no, they're not. I've been with them for 10 years, 15 years. And to be honest, I've kind of outgrown them, but I guess I keep listening to their advice. I don't know why. And I always say, advice is, you have to take it with a grain of salt. You have to understand who's it coming from and what the experiences are of the person giving it to you. And if it isn't where you want to be, maybe it shouldn't be the advice you take. So listening to coaches is good as long as the coaches are at the level where you want to aspire to get to.
The shortcut when franchising, you are part of a group when you buy a franchise, and the founder most of the time has had incredible success as a local business owner, depending on when you get into the franchise. So that founder's still around. Like I would be the guy that is going to their location, riding in the trucks with their team, doing whatever it takes to learn from the person that started the whole thing. Or I would be going to the most successful franchisees and building relationship with them, learning from them, and in whatever capacity that I could. So like we are way off topic, but like that's the shortcut. And we're off topic in some ways, but not in others, because like you were just talking about the financial arena, and we're going to talk about passive income, like, saving on taxes, all kinds of things, because this is what franchisors should be doing. They should not have that reaction to a CPA that they have that you just described. And I think so many franchisees and franchisors that I talk to have that reaction. They say things like, I've just been with them for so long, or and that's why I haven't moved, or I just don't feel like I'm getting good advice, or they're not doing this, or they're not doing that. And I'll talk to people and throw out some low-hanging fruit, like the Augusta Rule. Ask your CPA about the Augusta Rule. And if that's something you, as an entrepreneur with an LLC, that could you take advantage of the Augusta Rule? Utilize that as a lever to save some money on taxes. And these are people that are, making really good money, making $500,000, $1 million a year or less, and sometimes more. And they're like, yeah, my CPA, they don't really know about that. Or they think it's a huge audit risk. And it just, in my mind, I'm thinking, you have the wrong CPA. But most of the time, Russ, they just have so much like just history with them. Like what I say doesn't really matter at that point. And I don't try to convince people of that. Like, how common is that?
Oh, it's so common. I mean, I think to all of us, we're a little bit guilty of that. There's somebody that probably is a service provider in our life that we don't like, but we think of the fact that, having to move would be too cumbersome on us, and we don't do it. But when it comes to things like advisors into tax and financial that can move major levers, that can move mountains, if you will, in our finances, and can have impacts into our financial bloodline, I think that we should step up, right? Like as the leader of our family, that we say, hey, I'm willing to go through a little pain to make the adjustments to move. And I've seen that personally. I've had to make some of those adjustments. I've had CPAs in the past say, well, the IRS doesn't like that. and I was like, not really interested in what the IRS likes or dislikes. What I want to know is what does the law say? Are we following the law? That's all I care about, right? Like, I don't want to break any laws. This should be black or white. What did Congress say? And are we following it? And give me the exact documentation, the things I need to do. Tell me whenever I'm stepping over that line, I'll pull back. And when I found that, one, CPAs are great at looking in the rearview mirror and telling us what we owe. Like, here's the account of what happened in the past. I needed to go seek tax strategists, sometimes tax attorneys, as well as other professionals who were focused on looking out the front window. Here's what's coming down the road. You're building a business, you're building a franchise, you're a franchisor, and you're growing your net worth. You need to start thinking, how am I going to offset some of the taxation that's happening? Because it's not how much money we make, it's how much we keep. And everything that we can do, hit singles. Singles and doubles are great in taxes. Sometimes we get caught trying to look for those home runs. And yeah, I think that's why our advisors sometimes do get a little nervous, because they have seen those come back in lawsuits and people having to pay back all the taxes and penalties and fees and all this stuff. But there's so many things that people should be doing that they aren't doing. And another thing I would say is that we also have to be the steward of this. We can't just put our head in the sand and say that, oh, that's someone else's job. No, it's our job. It's our money. So we teach it in our passive income mastermind. We actually do 2 intensives every year where we go through with our tax strategists and they show us our own returns and we break them down. And so like 10 of us will be in a small group. We put our stuff on the board, everybody's stuff, we're undressed right in front of everybody. And we go line by line and we learn what is in there. Because until you learn what's on your tax return and you learn what to look for, it's hard for you to inspect what you expect. And I know as business owners, we're constantly managing our teams and we've got these SOPs and we're saying, hey, I expect you to do it this way. And we know how it should be done. And when they don't do it, we go and show them how they're deviating. But so oftentimes with our finances and taxes, we don't understand it. So we just sit back as like willing victims in the deal. And I'm like, no, that's an expensive, a mistake. Let's start learning how to be better at these things. Not that we need to do them, but we understand what are the questions we should be asking. So then we can know, do we have the right people in place or do we have to level up and get new ones?
Attention, franchisors and franchisees. There are 2 really important resources that I want to share with you that will help you avoid costly mistakes and increase your enterprise value. The first is our free Facebook group. It's a community that has over 4,000 franchisees and franchisors in it. When somebody asks a question, they get honest and authentic answers from multiple perspectives. You can join the group for free over at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. The second resource I want to share with you is if you're a franchisor and you're frustrated that you're not awarding as many franchises as you thought you would, this is the reason I created the Franchisor Mastermind. If you want access to the information, the techniques that the best franchise sales organizations are using to award franchises, and you want what mature brands have with their playbook of having happy, successful franchisees that grow the right way, then you might want to check out the Franchisor Mastermind. The reason why people join is they want access to my Rolodex, my connections. They want the playbook to achieve both short-term and long-term success. They want to increase enterprise value in their brand. Links will be in the show notes or at scalablefranchise.com. Most of the time when I'm talking to people or we're both, help people with passive income. You do it certain ways. I do it through the Tribe of Investor Mastermind with Justin Donald, and Ryan Casey's part of that. And most people have the wrong CPAs. And I think as I hear them talking and I talk about, I'm just using the Augusta Rule as a simple example. They're like, my CPA, like I said earlier, they say that's a big audit risk. But what I like to hear is CPAs that say, oh, that's interesting. I know the Augusta Rule, like we talked to that about, that's like a standard operating procedure for our clients. And then it might say, hey, what about an audit risk with that? What I love a CPA to say is like, oh, that's come up in a lot of different audits. I don't want a CPA that's afraid of an audit.
Right.
And I want a CPA that's ready to defend an audit because they're confident in it, because they've seen it before. And I love it when a CPA is like, yeah, this has been tried and tested in numerous audits that I've done personally. and no question about it. It passes. And then if they say no to something that I asked them about, they're like, no, this is not passing audits. This is heavily scrutinized right now by the IRS. Like this could, this one is not a good thing. That it's not, the risk is not worth the reward on this thing. I also, so that's CPA. And we were also talking about advisors. I work with Jim Dew over at Do Well. I believe you know who Jim is. And I like advisors that are above me in passive income, wealth creation, business, and everything. And that's Jim Dew. Jim's amazing. And I go to him and I ask him things, and I'm always pushing the team over there, because what I'm looking at now, Russ, is like, how do I save money on taxes? I'm not a C Corp, but I could create a C Corp. I would like to qualify for QSBS on an exit or something. And I'm having a hard time putting all of that together. And so finally I give them a scenario. I'm like, here's how I can get income from this into this C Corp, pay the initial taxes on that, not get double tax, put in that into a certain type of trust, and then be able to not have a taxable event on a portion of a large exit. But it comes, I'm always pushing. I'm even pushing the experts, and it's helping me become better to understand my own situation, so I understand what levers I can and cannot pull. But if you have a CPA or a tax advisor that just doesn't give you any feedback or any reason, you've got the wrong one. I don't know if we want to continue on that for a little bit, or we want to move over to passive income. You pick, Russ. What path are we going on?
Well, I think it's important, like what you're saying is, what are those fundamentals? What are the foundation principles that we need to understand? And like, I think just the basics of learning what are, being able to read your own tax return, being able to look and know which boxes on the tax return would identify potential issues, right? There's specific boxes on your tax return you can go look at. And if they have numbers in them, then you're probably seeing issues, right? So like when I think of, personal finance, and most of the mistakes I see with money is that a lot of the entrepreneurs we're dealing with, they're saying, hey, I'm either income rich and cash poor, or I'm asset rich and cash poor. The cash poor is the common thing, right? Like they haven't figured out how to keep more access to money. And kind of our whole framework starts with financial freedom is defined when passive income exceeds monthly expenses. And the number one obstacle to becoming financially free is lack of access to cash. So what we do with our cash is important. How do we get more of it coming back to us? So you've been talking about taxes, right? Like as much as I can get that dollar coming back to me and not going out to the IRS unnecessarily, right? Like I want to pay every tax that is owed and no more. It's not patriotic to pay more in taxes. That is a false principle, right? Like you don't understand our country's history if you think that paying more in taxes is being a patriot. No, I want to pay the least amount of taxes, but I want to pay exactly how much is owed. And it's my job to figure out by hiring the right advisors in my life that can help me with that. Also, the second part is, how do I become a good steward of the money I'm making in my business? How do I turn active income into passive income? And how do I do it on a repeatable basis? And for us, like we're trying to help people understand there's steps, there's phases to becoming financially free. You can't skip steps, right? Like it's just like in your business, you can't skip steps. There's a process to follow. If you follow the process, you follow the recipe, you can have success. But it's it's part of our DNA to understand what these things are. What are those mistakes that most business owners make with cash? Then how do they become what we would call a good investor? Because Kiyosaki would say there's no good or bad investments. There's only good or bad investors. So how do I know what those things are? And then how do I scale it to a point where I truly am financially free? And the goal is not to walk away and spend all my time surfing, right? I enjoy that, but not nearly as much as I do talking about this. Like I believe I'm called to be in service forever. And I just want to do the things though that I'm gifted to doing, and making sure I have team members that are doing all the things that I prefer not to do, or I become resentful if I have to do.
I love that. We say the same thing around for us at private investors. We're like, okay, you need to have your your passive income exceed your monthly expenses, and then eventually to have it cover your lifestyle, vacations and so whatever your lifestyle, like your true lifestyle is. And I love talking about passive income. Most of the audience, I would say, they are beginning their journey of passive income. Unless they're in my world or your world, in our different communities, then that's an active thing that they're focusing. I've got a lot of franchise people, consultants, franchisees, franchisors that are in our mastermind for this. And it's fun to see them all of a sudden have different levers to pull on taxes, things that they didn't know that they could do, creating like generational family wealth that they can really change the direction of their family. I love that stuff. You said one thing, turning active income into passive income. Let's dive into that a little bit more. Can you define active income, and can you define passive income, and how do you turn active into passive?
Yeah. So active income is the thing that we would say is our business, our jobs, right? The things that we have to go to work for some period of time in the week to create an income stream. Kiyosaki would say that's probably for everyone in the E and S quadrant, right? The B quadrant, right? The big B business owners who, can leave for a year at a time and the business continue to grow, that can become more passive. But I'm more speaking of the I quadrant, the professional investor who's putting dollars to work and someone else is actively working to create the income streams for us. There's passive income doesn't mean uninvolved, right? Like for it to be passive for you, it has to be active for someone else, and you have to be active on the front end. It means that you need to understand the people that you're investing in, the projects you're investing in, understand what you need to be inspecting on down the road and the questions you need to ask before and throughout to make sure that those dollars come back to you. Because if you're not doing your due diligence and you're not being a good follow-up artist, you can have less dollars coming back to you, and then it's no longer passive either. So when I say active, I'm thinking about our businesses that we're working in typically, regardless if it's a couple hours a week or it's, a passive is something where I'm investing in a project, someone else is doing all the work. So for us, we run a couple of different businesses. We teach people how to build what we call the passive income operating system, which is like the frameworks and the cash flow entities and setting up something called infinite banking. That's one of our businesses. We also have a coaching and mastermind company that is like helping investors become better investors and helping them, scale and think generationally. That's an active business. But at the same time, my business partner and I, for the last 5 years, have published our personal passive income report to the world, where we're investing in numbers of different businesses and different funds and in different asset classes. But they're things that we don't work in any shape or form. That would be passive for us.
What do people get wrong when they're starting this passive income journey?
Man, so many things. One is that they would look at what you and I are doing with our money and assume that your success in that specific asset class is just going to immediately transfer to them. And I think that people forget that there's a lot of nuance to the backgrounds, the networks, the resources, the way that we see the world. And unless we have all those exact same things, we probably won't have success. And let me share what I mean by that. I had a friend of mine early on in my financial advisory career that he was having so much success in the passive income space, and it was all in the rental real estate market. And I just had watched him build an empire, and he had the life that I wanted, right? Like he was that mentor for me. I was looking at him saying, I want that. And he had converted an apartment complex into, some condos. And he came to me and said, hey, Russ, I have one left. If you're interested in it, I'm willing to sell it to you wholesale because I want to get you started. And I thought, man, this is amazing. And so I was like, absolutely. I did no research. I was just like, yes. And so I went and bought this condo. It was down in my college town, which I thought this is going to be awesome, right? Like I'm going to have all these nieces and nephews over the years. My kids eventually will go to school there. Why wouldn't they? It's an amazing school. And I'll just be able to send kids down there. I'll have this place. And all of this stuff was filling my my need for like recognition and involvement. And it was exactly the opposite, Eric. But, I was getting $150 a month and, net rent after all the expenses. And I had no involvement, right? Like the management company would tell me, hey, water heater broke, or hey, we just rented out your unit. But none of the things that I really filled me up of like being involved and having the ability to say something or, control some aspect of it, I couldn't do that. None of my nieces and nephews end up going to school there for the next 10 or 15 years. I've had one since then has gone. And it was just like the most boring investment to me. And I was like, if this is the way I'm experiencing one, why would I want hundreds like he had? And I didn't learn until after the fact that I had what everybody has, which is what's called an investor DNA. I had a certain way in which I saw the world, and investments that I was going to interact with were going to either be positive or negative to that specific personality set that I had, which was going to determine how much I would invest or not invest in it, which would then ultimately end up with what would my result be. And it took me a long time to realize that the way that I saw the world and the way I invested needed to be connected. And when they were, like the light bulb went off for me. So I would say most people make the mistake of thinking just because, Russ, you go and look at our passive income report on our website that we publish every month. Oh, you guys are making $50,000 a month in passive income. And here's like the 3 top categories you're doing it. I just need to do that. I would say that would be a huge mistake.
And I think it's very common for people to follow people like you and me, Justin Donald, and others, and or people that they respect in their local town, and like, oh, so and so is doing it, it must be good. Now, conversations that you and I get to have that are private conversations with different people, and we talk about this kind of thing. I'm thinking about one specifically that I had while skiing in Colorado, and he said, Erik, and he probably makes millions a year, many millions a year in passive income. He's like, we were talking about specific deals, and he's like, I invested in this one deal. He's like, but I didn't do it for the return. I did it for a different reason. I can't remember what it was, relationship or to bet, whatever it was. It wasn't like purely to make money. And he's like, there's a different reason I did it. And that's why I don't like to tell people what I'm investing in, because people will think just because I invest into it, it's good for them too. Now take that to like what you and I are doing. Like, I think everyone should have the right asset allocation for themselves. And it's so easy for people to get over allocated in different asset classes. I'll put something in the show notes that will help people understand like different asset classes, what you should, like how you start to think about that for yourselves. But I know for myself, at one point, I was overly invested in real estate, and I was overly invested in multifamily. And so, I've not lost any money in that yet, but I was starting to get over allocated in that a number of years ago on accident in some ways. And then interest rates started going up, and multifamily, where any idiot that owned anything in multifamily was just printing money. Interest rates go up. They didn't have the right mechanisms in place to have secure long-term debt. And that's all changing now. People are losing their multifamily apartment buildings and things like that. They've already lost it, or they're going to lose it because they had not been punched in the face in prior downturns in the market, or they hadn't seen certain things yet. And so I realized I was over allocated in that, looking back, and even in debt, private debt. So real estate is one thing that I was over allocated in. And then if I'm also lending out money as hard money loans to real estate investors, you could look at that like that's a loan. That's not a real estate asset, but really you could see that as a real estate asset, or if you're in funds that are asset backed in real estate. So I think it's important for people to really understand their asset class and then what they want to invest in, what they should be investing in, what they're over allocated in. And there's certain things to look at out there, like Tiger 21 puts out a report on what their members are with their asset allocation. You can look at some of the larger family offices to see how those families are allocated. And I think, just people just need to start to understand asset classes and really what getting out of the stock market into private deals, but not over allocated in certain areas. So what are you seeing out there when it comes to that type of stuff?
Yeah, I agree that, you see a lot of people now that as the markets have changed, I think we are either in a recession or heading to one. It's not a popular opinion, but I feel like, you can't deny the math that we're seeing. And it's something that most economists have expected for a number of years. And it is what it is. But I think that you're seeing as the market comes down, there's a lot of people who, like you said, have had success as a result of a sugar hyped market. Like I like to make the analogy that it's like our kids, when they get hyped up on sugar, right? They start spiraling toward the end of it. And whenever you pull them off the sugar, like they have this huge crash. And we've had that, like all this, fake money that's been pumped into the market over the last 5 years is, really showing that there's not the demand that everyone thought that there was. It was just excess cash. And now that's happening, now you're seeing there's people that are just not great operators who are okay operators that were getting by with the market. So I do think it's important that you invest in operators. And it's hard, right? Like, because the really good operators, the ones that have been doing this for 25 years, like you and I have several of those that are in our joint mastermind, they don't really need your money. They've already got the people that's been investing with them for 25 years. They don't really need the money. And it's hard then to say, okay, well, how do I get into these deals? So you have to really start to vet operators, understand like what are their true capabilities, where are they kind of getting out over their skis. Yeah, we've seen a lot of these where they're having capital calls on these different investments. They didn't have the reserves in place that they thought because they were they were using the last 4 or 5 years as a forecast for them, which was not a good indicator of what the future would look like. And it's become an issue. And one of the things that we talk about is having 200% of our passive income. That's our mastermind's goal. And it's like, well, why is that? Well, 2 reasons. One is that if we have pullbacks, if we go into recessions like this, we could be 50% right? Like half of our deals could stop paying us and we would still be financially free. The second part is that I want to think generationally. I want to think past myself. I want to be thinking, how do I leave money to my children's children? And so that makes me think differently. One, it makes me go, I better be wise with these dollars, because I'm okay sometimes when I make mistakes. But when I think about how it impacts the future of others, it really makes me become a better steward and an investor. So those are just some of the initial thoughts that come to mind.
Well, your brand is Wealth Without Wall Street. How much should an investor allocate towards Wall Street?
I won't answer that specific question. One, because I'm not a financial advisor, and I usually say financial advice is trash and should be treated as such, because it's only coming from the opinion of the person, right? And the experience of that person dictates why they say what they say. What I will say is that I'm big on frameworks. Our buddy Sharon Srivatsa, he loves to teach in frameworks, and so we built one around if financial freedom is defined by passive income exceeding monthly expenses, then I can decide what I'm doing with money if I agree that that's my objective. So assume the person listening to us right now says, I want that to be my goal. I want to be quote unquote financially free by having more passive income than my monthly expenses. Then here's the question for you. If I take $1 and I put it in the market of any sort, right? Will it produce a passive income for me? Yes or no? What would you say to that?
Yeah.
It would? Give me an example. If I put money in the stock market, how it's going to produce a passive income?
Oh, passive income. No.
Okay. All right. Great. Does it reduce a monthly expense for me? No. Okay. So it did produce a passive income. It didn't reduce a monthly expense. So now the framework says, am I getting closer to or further from financial freedom if I put money toward that?
Further from.
So if the person's goal is to become financially free, right, then I would say 0%. of their money should be going there if that's their objective, right? So everything that we do with money, and this is, I get the question, Russ, when should I pay off debt versus start to build up and become an investor, right? And start building passive income. Like, we just go to the framework, right? Like, does paying down debt reduce my monthly expenses? And the answer is no. Paying off debt reduces my monthly expenses. Does paying down debt produce a passive income? No. Does paying off debt produce passive income? No. So when you start thinking in frameworks, here's a big one that I get a lot. I will stand on the fence and I will say this from the rafters. And this is one that usually, will irk some people because they've been doing it at high levels. I will say your 401k, your self-directed IRA, your pension fund are the worst tools to become financially free. And they'll go, wait a second. No, I've been earning 22% for the last 10 years in my, in that account. And I'm like, great. Does it produce a passive income? And they're like, well, no, not until I'm like 60 and I start taking income from it. I'm like, okay. Does it reduce the monthly expense for you? Well, no, I was contributing money, so I have less money to do anything. Okay, so then based upon that criteria, is it getting you closer to or further from financial freedom? And it's that lightning bolt moment for people when they go, oh, right? Like, it's not whether I believe taxes are going up or taxes are going down, whether I believe the market is going up or the market's going down. That doesn't matter. What am I doing with dollars? Is it getting me closer to or further from financial freedom? If we can agree on that framework, and you know that I'm a former certified financial planner. I was trained by the markets. I was trained by all of these companies to get your money, to separate you from your money. So I know all the tricks. I understand. I can tell you about dollar cost averaging and how good that is for you. I can talk to you, about what the standard deviation of the funds are that you're investing in and how the alpha of this, fund manager, is this much greater than everybody else. All of that is just marketing. It's marketing. What are we doing with our dollars? Is it getting us more of what we want or less of what we want? It's not an accumulation play. It's not having, the person who wins this game doesn't have $10 million in an account in the future. The person who wins this game has more passive income coming in than monthly expenses that they can never run out of. That is financial freedom. That's where people truly get to show up because they want to and not because they have to.
Let's talk about some passive deals.
Okay.
We're not talking about specific deals, but types of deals. Do you like them paid monthly? Do you like it quarterly, every year? Like, how do you, when you think about, I think about it like, if it's paid every year, I'm okay with that. Monthly's even better. Quarterly's fine. Every year, then, it's something that's predictable. When you think of, for that framework, what fits into that category from a deal standpoint? I'm guessing debt funds and things like that. What else would fit into that category?
Yeah. So what you're asking about is like a buy box. And I think every investor before they start investing needs to know who they are as an investor, what their investor DNA is, what are the things they're going to like and dislike, and determine that before they start investing so then they can rule out. It's kind of like sending a kid to college. Like if you're going to send your kid to college, go ahead and figure out, does college give them more of what they want? Or is it just going to prolong the pain of them having to figure it out later and you spending a bunch of money? So I think the same thing's true with investing. But then the next step is determining what your buy box is. What are the things that I want? So my business partner would tell you if it doesn't pay monthly, he's out, right? Like his buy box is that tight. I'm open to quarterly, right? Like, because I've built enough passive income in other streams that it doesn't have to be monthly. One of the things I like about...
Say that again, because that's important. I mean, and I think that everyone's different, but that's important. Like your business partner, it has to be monthly or it's a no. I think everyone should have, that gets tightened up as you learn more, but there should be immediate no's where you just get rid of deals. For me right now, the immediate no are angel deals. That's immediate no for me because I've lost a lot of money on angel deals. But for you, like, certain people will be like, no, I'm okay with quarterly. I'm okay with yearly because I have X amount of monthly passive built up. So I think that was an important point.
It's when you have that buy box so tight, you really, before you go out and get in and start investing, because what happens in investing, it becomes emotional. It's like if you ever gambled, it didn't matter if it's 25 cents in a slot machine or it was, $25 on a football game.
Right.
You get emotional in the deal. And that's what happens. Right now, people are really not investing, they're gambling. Like the markets have become very speculative. It's this rush that we get, this dopamine hit, just like rolling craps on a crap table. We don't really care about the outcome. It's the rush of when the dice are rolling. That's what's happening with people. Crypto is just, fed into that frenzy. So we tell people you have to invest objectively, not subjectively. You got to take emotion out of it. The only way you can do that is know exactly what you want to invest in and where your buy box is going to be before you do it. So then when you go out and see deals, your job is to say no 99 times out of 100. Most people see a deal and do a deal.
You start with a no when you're looking at a deal.
Yes. Like, why should I not do this is the thing that I'm always asking, right? And I'm an optimist. I'm like, I see opportunity in everything, but I have to start with that perspective because I know that there's no deal that somebody's going to show me that's going to look bad.
That's exactly it. Like, what deals that sponsors or general partners, what deals are they showing you that look bad? Like they get to basically make it up how it looks. Like they don't show you bad deals.
No, they don't. That would be really bad at their job. So people says, well, if they're always going to show me the best scenario, how do I know? Well, here's a great question. So if you're asking for one good question to ask any sponsor, pitching you a deal, ask them this question. Tell me how I'm going to lose all my money. I'm telling you, that is the best question you can ever ask, because then they're going to have to start rewinding in their brain. What are all the things that they assumed would go right that could go wrong? And now you start learning, and then you can start asking questions. Okay, well, so you said if the interest rates move from here to here, what has been a situation where you've seen that happen? What contingency plans do you have to prevent that? Are you taking in more reserves then in case that happens? Like, you can start asking specifics around that thing that can help them like tell you, because they've thought about this, right? They have thought about this, but they're not going to tell you necessarily on a piece of paper. So when you can get to that level of understanding, and here's the thing is that deals go bad, but what I want to do is I want to be in bad deals with good people. I don't want to be in good deals with bad people. And what you want to get down to is understanding the people and asking them, when a deal went bad in the past, how did you handle it? How did you communicate it? Because they've also had bad experiences in the past. Like the good ones have all lost money at some point. How did they handle it? How did they communicate it to their investors? Did they go hide in a corner and wait for it to get over and hopefully it blew over and now that everything's back to normal? Or did they communicate openly throughout the whole process and say, here's what's happened, and here's what we're doing to take, to get it back on the rails if possible? And also, I'm looking for people who've lost money for their investors and didn't file bankruptcy, who didn't run for the hills, who took the next 4 deals where they made profits and paid back those investors. Those operators do exist. They're not unicorns, but you have to ask questions to get down to that level.
I was in a deal. I'd started it about 3 years ago. I got into a deal, and it was commercial. It was office space in Texas before COVID. So I was in this deal, office space before Texas, like large office space. And the reason that I did the deal was because of one clause that was in it. If you don't like this deal for any reason at any time, they will refund you your money.
Whoa. And
so I'm like, okay, that's and they have a reputation of doing that. I think they'd done it with 2 deals in the past, and they do a lot of deals. And so we don't know what happened. COVID came around and office space was not like amazing. And all of a sudden they're not able to continue to distribute monthly like they were. And it was in 2024, I sent an email and said, hey, I'm ready to get my money back because I don't want to be in this deal anymore. And you had to do a few things. They had to post it out to their community to see if anybody wanted to buy it. If they didn't want to buy it, then the sponsors would buy you out of it. And Russ, that's exactly what happened. I got my money back out of it. So those types of deals do exist. And it helps give people an understanding of like when we talk about private deals and not all deals are equal, like you start to understand that there's some amazing operators out there, amazing sponsors that do things like that. Now, if I was to get into another one of their deals, I would not have that opportunity again because it's only a one-time deal. But that's one that I was grateful to be a part of. And then you were talking about there's two different ways that sponsors or the people that are putting the deal together can react. I have two people in mind. I'm not going to name any names. One, stop communication with their investors. Stop communication just went dark and has gone dark. And I know the money's gone. I know it's gone. A deal that I'm in, tough deal in multifamily, extra communication, more going on, open communication, very honest with the hard things. And like, as soon as you said that, like, I appreciate that, them as a sponsor. Do I wish they would have had different deal structure with their debt? 100%. But do I respect and grateful for how they follow through? Without a doubt. So I think that's one of the things that the average person that has all of their wealth with Wall Street right now, I would just look at a ton of deals, and you really need to understand who the sponsors are and their track record. And I think if I was starting out without any help from you, without any help from me, I would just look at deals for at least a year before I jumped into a deal. What advice would you have for somebody like that?
Yeah, I think it's always important to sharpen that axe. I mean, I don't know who said it. Everything's accredited to Abraham Lincoln, but it's like if I've given 5 hours to chop down a tree, spend 4 hours, sharpen my axe. I think that we have to think about that as investors. How are we sharpening our financial IQ? Are we in an environment that's given us that ability? Like, we build something called a passive income lab. It's a 12-week program for people who've never built passive income to do all of these things we've talked about, so that they can sharpen that axe, so they can learn, right? They can see a lot of deals. We intentionally show them a lot of deals that they can't do, but we help them do the due diligence on them. We help them go through all of the processes, reading the PPMs, like these, 80-page documents that most people just sign and just shove away, right? Because they're overwhelmed. They don't know what's in it. They can't read most of the legalese anyway. Well, that's a bad idea. Like, you should know all the things around this. And especially now with ChatGPT and stuff like that, you can like simplify the stuff for yourself. So like, become a good investor, learn how to, where your dollars are going. Ask the questions: are my dollars giving me more of what I want or less of what I want? Is this going to match up with who I am? If I'm someone who seeks control and I like leverage, does it possess that? If I'm someone who loves security and process, does it give me all of the contingencies that I want? If I'm someone who makes spontaneous decisions and I think everything's a no-brainer, go get a second opinion. Like figure out these little, the giftings that we have, but also what are the things that potentially could bring us down. Find someone else who can like put eyes on it, who's different than you, who might be able to see the inefficiencies, may be able to see the lack of process in the deal, that could point out some of this stuff so you learn from them. And by doing that, it'll only allow you to do better deals, right? Again, being in a bad deal is going to happen at some point, but I want to be in a bad deal with good people.
Yep, that's huge. What else? Give me a sense of some deals, like just asset classes that tend to produce passive income, pay monthly or quarterly.
Yeah, you mentioned like some of the things. Again, I wouldn't tell just everybody to do this, but the ones that we're participating in, private lending is one of the easiest monthly items for us to evaluate. You can see the collateral. You can have the double collateral, right? Like, I'm always collateral. And I want something. I had a buddy of mine. We were talking about this before. He was up there near you in South Dakota. He did a $600,000 loan on like a $5 million warehouse that was paid off. And the warehouse tenant was paying like $40,000 a month in cash flow. And he was like, yeah, I'll do that deal. And I hope you default. Like, I want the deal. So like, finding things like private lending, we've got into all different types of note investing. One of our favorites is actually we're in the land flipping space where we're buying land and selling it on owner finance terms. It's a great monthly cash flow for us because it doesn't have all these different Dodd-Frank rules because there's no structures on it. If someone quits paying, we just end the contract and we go out and resell it. So our basis is reduced every time that happens. So it's not ideal. I want somebody to be able to pay it off and own it. But it's one of those areas where we don't have to go through foreclosure and all of the, the rigmarole that you see in the typical residential market. Those are, areas where if you get in the note space, there's real niches there that we see cash flow. We personally have a debt fund, right? Like we're in the process of rolling up different insurance agencies that are in our specific niche. And so we built a debt fund that just pays monthly. It's very boring. It's for people not like me because I don't like boring. I like excitement and paying 8 to 10% every single month, like clockwork. There's no multiples on the end. There's not a whole lot of volatility. But for some people who just love certainty, they love security and stability, like that's right up their alley. So those are some.
I think these debt funds, and I'm not going to give any names and on that, but I'm invested, and I look at the track record. I also, what I'm seeing out there, I'm curious if you're seeing it, I think you kind of mentioned it, 8 to 10% on a debt fund. They typically pay monthly. So you're getting paid monthly. I just let mine roll back into it. And I think the one of them that I'm in now is about 9.5% APR paid monthly. So it compounds. And then what I like about those types of funds is there's liquidity to them, depending on the fund, but maybe it's a couple weeks to get money out if you need it. Maybe it's a month or 3 months, but there's, a level of liquidity versus, being locked up. Anything else that you would add to like a debt fund just to kind of educate the audience?
Yeah, understanding the ability to repay it, right? Like again, everything you're doing, you want to understand what causes me never to be able to get my money back, right? Mm-hmm. Give me all the examples and ask those and determine whether or not the person has capital. Are they just arbitraging your money to do something mm-hmm. else? And if so, what if that thing goes bad? Are you now caught, supporting that decision? So it always comes back to how much do you understand about what you're doing?
Yep.
Not that you need to be the expert, but you need to be good enough to ask the right questions.
Yeah, you need to understand what kind of leverage they have on it. Like your money is getting leverage. Are they leveraging that? Because that just adds risk. It can pump up returns, but it can also add risk. And then lastly, like with debt funds, you hope that the answer is if like they foreclose, that's a good thing financially for them in the short term. Long term, they would rather have that as a reoccurring customer. So there's just a little tidbit on debt funds. Russ, anything else that you'd like to add or share before I let you go?
Yeah, people always ask us for like, hey, how do I understand what my investor DNA is? How do I learn about that passive income operating system? So what I did is just created a free resource page for any of your listeners to go to. They just go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/franchise secrets. And all of those free tools are there. There's nothing to buy. But definitely would love for you to keep learning. And if this is the kind of stuff you're interested in, we also do a podcast and we share all of these things. And we have you coming on pretty soon. Excited to have your expertise shared with the audience as well.
What's the name of the podcast?
It's really original. It's Wealth Without Wall Street.
And then what's that website that you gave them again? Just one more.
Yeah, it's wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/franchise secrets.
All right. And then I have my passive income roadmap. If you want to get a session that Justin and Ryan did on your passive income roadmap. This is great. Like I love giving the audience so much stuff. Appreciate you coming on. And I can't wait for the invite to come surfing out at the lake house one of these days.
Heck yeah, man. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Franchise Secrets podcast. Links to everything can be found over at franchisesecrets.com. And if you want my help with anything from starting your own franchise to growing your current franchise business, please visit scalablefranchise.com.